For creating wealth seems a bit complex and convoluted.
Scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth.
An unnecessary expense, but in your case, you're talking about as a foundational.
Let me
piece.
tell you this, because let's just establish the problem. They might just see possibility everywhere.
So you don't necessarily disagree with the bad press.
Probably 90% of the time, it's right.
And that's important because
If you live in that hustle, grind, and work, there's a ceiling to it.
not as sexy as I think what a lot of times people are wanting.
So what is the solution?
Okay.
The trifecta of wealth.
Oh.
80% of what you think you need to know about finance, you don't actually need to worry about. You just need the foundational pieces.
The strategy for creating wealth sometimes seems a bit complex and convoluted. Is there kind of a simplified way to think about how to go about obtaining wealth?
Well, part of it's because let's just establish the problem to start with.
Yeah.
Like when people think wealth, they immediately think, I've got to learn to invest. And then they start thinking about all the different types of investments out there, right? Whether it's real estate, whether it's crypto, whether it's stocks. I mean, there's 1,000 different things and different ways to do it. So it could feel a little bit overwhelming, especially when someone's got a very busy life. They've got a lot going on. And so they're like, where am I going to fit this in? And because it's something they try to fit in, a lot of times they lose interest or they don't get the success they want. And that kind of sabotages the results. And they just forfeit, give up, just hand money over, wish for the best. And so it can be a very frustrating process.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. So what is the solution? So the solution is this kind of triangle, the trifecta of wealth. Okay. The first thing is we got to begin with perspective. Because perspective is how we see the world. Our perspective determines our action. And so if our perspective is one of scarcity, one of limitation, one of fear, doubt, and worry, scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth because it's all about entitlement and victimhood and blame and not enough to go around. And that kind of thought process gets people stuck in what I call the consumer condition, where they look to take more from the world than they give. And if their belief is there's only so much to go around and there's a finite pie, that scarcity is that they're going to try to compete for this slice, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually about the hustle and the grind and the hard work. And so it's a very limiting factor because if you live in that hustle, grind, and work, there's a ceiling to it. Because there's only so much production when you try to do too much on your own.
Yeah. And also everyone becomes competition to you.
Right. And so it's like it actually destroys collaboration. And so when we labor without vision, that leads to the hustle and the grind, but also it leads to that ceiling because you're like, okay, there's only so much energy you have. And eventually when you run out of energy, and then you're like, you got nothing left in the tank. It's like, you're not thinking about hiring a team. You're not thinking about proper delegation. You're not thinking about what you actually want. And it's just about the work that's being done. And it's almost like trading time for money. So that finite pie is a lie because there's the infinite pie. There's more and more value that can happen, the more and more exchange. And so that's the producer perspective. So talking about perspective, it's the producer paradigm where you create more value in the world than you take from it. It's about innovation, ingenuity, and value creation. It's that profit is evidence of value, not deception and coercion. It's that, even if there's only so much to go around, there's an infinite number of times it can go around because dollars keep exchanging hands. And so at the very beginning is that perspective. And if we're not coming from abundance, it's going to limit our results. It's going to limit what we think is possible. And part of that perspective, Weston, is people think money is the root of all evil. They think money is bad. They think it's wrong. They think it's dirty, filthy. They think it's stinking. They think all these kind of things. So they might want to be a good person, but they think by earning money, somehow it makes them less good. And so you can imagine that conflict, right?
Yeah.
There's like this dilemma. And that dilemma is like, all right, I want more money, but money is the root of evil.
Yeah.
And again, they probably don't think that out loud. It's kind of like subconscious.
Yeah, subconscious.
Because then we go, oh, well, it's the love of money, but I think it's the love of money over people that is the root of evil, not the money is a byproduct of value creation and an efficient exchange. That's great.
Rich people bad
Right, rich people bad, right?
Yeah.
So perspective is where we have to begin. And so here's one thing that happens. When people have abundance as their perspective and they live in that world of innovation and ingenuity, they might just see possibility everywhere. Oh, look at this. Real estate, stocks, bonds, businesses, Bitcoin, like just everything. There's just an abundance of opportunity. They get in these conversations and they're excitable. And often if it was just that abundance perspective, it could turn into a counterfeit. And that counterfeit is ignorance.
Gotcha. So you're saying, so getting the positive perspective is good, but if we just stop there, it leads to issues.
The power of positive thinking can be deceptive. I'm just going to think positively. Well, I just lost all my money in NFT. I'm going to think positively while someone is out of integrity and takes advantage of you, right? Like that ignorance is not the same thing as abundance. And one of the hardest thing is really to be abundant, you have to be focused. And see, when I thought I was being abundant in my 20s, I was actually being greedy. Oh yeah, I could do this and this and this and this and this, not really having a clarity around what I wanted in my life. So my perspective was actually always more. But that's where the second thing comes into play. The second P here is purpose. So what purpose does is it starts to narrow down. It starts to say no to certain things so you can get laser focused on only a few things.
Gotcha. So,
right?
So the perspective allows us to see the opportunities, and then the purpose helps us define which of those opportunities are for us.
Right. So like, it's like going from a flashlight to a laser, and it's like laser focused. And this is the hardest thing for most people to generate wealth, is to be focused, because talented people have plenty of things that they could do. Interesting people have people bringing them ideas all the time. People with money have people that show up with, hey, why don't you invest in this? And so it's hard to say no to that sometimes.
Yeah.
But saying yes to that might be saying no to something else. And it takes abundance to say not now, or no, or it's not going to work for me. So that purpose really is where we narrow it down. And so when people lack purpose, they might just say yes to money and then find out like, wait, I hate this. I hated doing real estate, but I was saying yes to money and no to my passions and to the things that I was most unique in, because it was just like, well, I should own a bunch of real estate. Yeah. Why? Because that's what other people do that have money. Well, you got to know your investor DNA, which is all around purpose. Like, what are your values? What are you competent in, and what it drives you? And so purpose is that narrowing down. It is that focus.
Is there a way for a person to kind of quickly identify what is their investor DNA? Like one thing I always tell people when they're trying to figure out like what to do in life is, look at what you got in trouble for when you were 5 years old, the most often, right? Because it's like, that's kind of your natural inclination. Is there anything kind of like that for helping a person understand their investor DNA?
Well, you could just go back and look at your history. Okay. And so say, all right, what have you invested in? What have you made money in? And what have you lost money in? Where do you find yourself researching and reading? And even if you're on a relaxed day, you might look at and talk about.
Oh, okay.
Like I know people that they love to talk about Bitcoin. It's in their DNA. They like to talk about what's going on in the technology. I know other people that are fascinated by real estate and the trends in the market and the things that are going on. I know other people that are always looking at what businesses are the right ones to buy, and they go through like the Porter model from Harvard to figure out what makes sense. And then, for me, you always know I'm talking about intellectual property and the books that I'm writing and the things that I'm doing. So part of it is you look at your history and say, where'd I invest? And what was that process like? Did I bring anything unique to it? Do I have a good network around it? Do I have skill sets that are valuable? Do I know when to get out of it? Do I know when to get in it? Do I know what the dangers or the opportunities might be? Am I finding myself researching and learning about it, or wanting to go to conferences or talk to other people that are involved in it? Like, it's just life.
Yeah.
We just look and see. So much about video and about filming and about lighting and about studio. Like, you just happen to have a knack for it and an interest in it. There's probably certain things that you're up to speed on in there that nobody asked you to.
Yeah.
You just find yourself figuring it out.
Yeah.
Wanting to know. And so that's part of it, is find the flow instead of the force. Find the things that you naturally are working towards. But what we have to be is okay sitting in cash sometimes, if that's the case. It takes patience to just say, I don't know if this is the right thing for me yet. Maybe I'm just going to do a very small amount of money, and maybe that's going to go to a mentor first, or maybe I'm going to just be part of a deal, or maybe I'm going to just start looking and see how the trends are and see what would work and figure out what the downsides might be. Like Investor DNA, like if people get Killing Sacred Cows 2.0, they can download the Investor DNA. It's a Rich Life Investor course, and start going through the questions to get that self-discovery. And if they do, they're going to have a lot of insight on what makes sense for them and what doesn't. But what we have to be really careful about with Investor DNA is passion can be misleading. We could enthusiastically run in the wrong direction, as Peter Drucker said. We can have our interest and our excitement overrule our due diligence.
Oh, okay.
So people that are really excited about maybe green energy might make bad investments because it's just so exciting, because it's something they want to be part of and something they want to do. And so they invest in it, but it might not actually make financial sense.
Yeah, or the people who are actually running the program may not be the right people, or, whatever.
Right, because the human capital matters.
Yeah.
I think it was the Pixar team that said you can give a mediocre idea to an amazing team and they'll turn it into something special. But you can give the best idea to a mediocre team and they'll create mediocrity.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about that with investing as well. And so this passion, great, you have interest, you have desire, but that just because you're passionate about it doesn't automatically make it work. And that's where I think that people get led astray. That's why for some people, they just like to hand their money over and put it in an index fund and not think about it, because there is no passion to mislead or confuse them. But at the same time, I kind of have this feeling like I vote with my dollar. And look, I've really thought about it. Like, if I just decided when I was 19 years old and I started to really invest, at 18 I started to invest. If I would have just been like, I'm just going to put every dollar that I would have normally invested in an index fund, in some ways, I actually would be further ahead financially. I'm admitting it.
Okay, how so?
I would just have more money on paper.
Okay.
Because I could put it in pre-tax and it would look good in a retirement plan, like a defined benefit plan, or a SEP IRA, and then just in the regular, like if I just had a low cost ETF, if I just let that ride, looking at what the market did since I started in 1998. Because I've also made mistakes. I've put money into a golf course that didn't pan out. I had a hard money lending fund that did really well, and then it really suffered, and that cost me a lot of money. So I've made and lost money, and some of the things that I made, I've made really well, and some of the things I've lost quite a bit, and probably would have just been better off just if I took the time and focused on other things and just handed the money over. But it's not who I am.
Yeah, but also you're talking about putting a significant amount of money into that IRA.
But what would happen is I wouldn't have built the mental capital.
True. Yeah.
I wouldn't have built due diligence tools. I wouldn't have written the books that I've written. I wouldn't have the ability to earn the same level of income I've earned if I would have just turned my brain off and mindlessly handed it over. I am just saying that if someone doesn't know what to do, a public market is going to be a lot less dangerous than a private market. An efficient market where there's a lot of liquidity of buying and selling, you're going to be safer than something that is illiquid with less reporting, but it's just not in my DNA. It's not my investor DNA. The stock market isn't something I want to pay attention to. I'm not reading about what's going on in those boardrooms or what the trends might be. I like the businesses I'm in. I like hiring speaking coaches and writing coaches. And I like to learn about AI tools that help me be more productive and get the team working together. And like, that's been an invaluable lesson that I think in the end, I'll be a lot better off doing this. Because I've just made some mistakes selling my business for less than I probably could have because I had other offers, or, losing money in something because I got in over my skis or by being over leveraged. Those kind of things have allowed me to be so much more valuable to the people that I coach. Yeah. I've helped them get out of these really tough situations that if I didn't have that information, if I didn't make those mistakes, I wouldn't have written the books. I wouldn't have the coaching. I wouldn't have the networks. I wouldn't have built these other things that might be not as tangible today as being able to just sell everything in the market.
Yeah. So let's walk back a bit. Okay. So we have first the perspective. So,
all right, what's your perspective? This is what you want. Is there any place where someone's in scarcity? Let's help identify that. It might be money blocks. It might be, blind spots. It might be just scarcity thinking, and then get to what's your purpose? Like, how do we, once we look at everything, what actually makes sense for who you are? Investor DNA, not everything, but focus, and then build out the plan. And part of the plan is You build the foundational pieces first. Make sure you have transferred, your risks through insurance, through having a little bit of liquidity, through having asset protection and even corporate structure for your business owner. It's making sure that you have a good cash flow plan so that you have cash that's coming in even if you don't go to work. It's making sure that, you have minimized your taxes and gone back the last 3 years and seen if you missed anything and you can amend those returns. It's making sure you protect the downside with your investments and remove any hidden fees or drag with, commissions that might not help the performance. And then it's really just about how you design your loans if you have them. Is there a way to restructure them to get lower interest rates? Is there a way to renegotiate to get better interest rates? Is there a way to reallocate and take underperforming funds? So that financial fitness, having that plan, once you have the foundation handled, then the plan is, how do you become financially independent? What's the plan to get there? And that financial independence helps someone to free up their life. When I was really young, I was still a senior in the university. I ended up meeting with a professor that used to manage $5 billion in municipal bonds. He was the best in the world, the best in the world. That's cool. And he was a mentor of mine. I was a racquetball partner and worked out with him. See, when this guy became a professor, he's financially independent. So at 53 years old, he goes, I'm now going to just go and teach because that's my way to pay it forward. And it did, man. It really impacted me and so many of the other students. I was just on a flight to Nashville and saw one of the other kids in our class and talked to him. And I mean, it's just pretty phenomenal that this guy donated money to the university and we used the actual money to trade to get our grade and like just a world-class education because of this individual. He did pay it forward, but he had built the plan of financial independence that gave him permission to do what he wanted to do, including every year his kids and their grandkids, he'd say, what do you want to do? How do you want to go and enjoy the inheritance while we're alive? Is there a trip? Is there an experience? And he wanted it to be an investment where they could have a retreat together, where they could have some fun together, where they could have that time together. And I thought that was really special to watch that because he knew what he valued.
Yeah. So let's walk back a bit. Okay. So we have first the perspective. I'm trying to get out of the scarcity that I'm in. I work to try to change my perspective of getting to a growth mindset. And that's important because then I get to see more opportunities. So now I'm seeing more opportunities, and that's where the next part comes into play so that I can find purpose and figure out which of those new opportunities that I'm seeing are aligned with me. And then from there, you're saying the plan. So, I mean, the plan parts feels a little complicated and kind of overwhelming in its own regard.
It really isn't, because 80% of what you think you need to know about finance, you don't actually need to worry about. You just need the foundational pieces. Have you designed your car insurance properly? Your homeowners, your umbrella policy that supports those two? Do you have the right disability plan? Have you got a health savings account to help with your medical insurance? Do you have the right life insurance? Do you have a business owner policy if you're a business owner? Do you have your tax team to make sure you don't pay on too much on taxes? Do you just have a basic cash flow software that helps you see where you're at financially from day to day? Are you paying yourself first? Have you built up 6 months of staying power and liquidity? Where do you want to put those savings? Is there a better place than just a bank, like a cash value policy?
Gotcha.
And then from there, it's investor DNA. How do you create cash flow with your investor DNA? Most people think, I've got to know about tax liens and derivatives, and I got to know about options trading. And no, those aren't your investor DNA. I don't know that much about those. I mean, I can talk about them, but I don't implement them, because anytime I get outside of my investor DNA, like if this is my investor DNA right here, and that's like, think about someone's pitching, that's my strike zone. Anything outside of that is more risk. Anything in this is risk here, because now what we've got is a bunch of stuff I don't know what to do with, So maybe I don't know enough about NFTs or ETH, or I don't know enough about Bitcoin. I don't know enough about, certain types of real estate, maybe anything from like a fix and flip to commercial real estate to residential, to Airbnb. Like, basically all I'm trying to do is figure out, with all these different opportunities out there, which ones are opportunities and which ones are actually distractions.
So with that, like going to the insurances,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times insurances seem like an unnecessary expense, but in your case, you're talking about as a foundational.
Let me tell you this, Weston. When people look at insurance, everyone loves coverage.
Yeah.
They just hate premium.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have a strategy for that.
Oh, okay.
Only insure the catastrophic, not the inconsequential.
So what would be a good example?
Okay, so here's a perfect example. I meet this couple, and they've got $250 deductibles. But they've got plenty of money sitting in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what would happen if we raised that to either $1,000, $1,500, or $2,500? What if we said, you're going to take a little bit more risk by not insuring up to that? Because the first dollar they're paying for insurance, between $250 and $2,500 is the most expensive.
Interesting.
That because it's highly likely it could easily occur. Fender benders, like you name it. There's a lot of things. But if they just raised it, what I found was we could add $9 million of umbrella, which is excess liability. It's the catastrophic, and still save $240 a year by going to the $2,500 deductible. So they've essentially taken, $2,250. They took basically $2,250 of extra risk. I'll draw it this way.
So they were saving $240 a month, or
so what they had was a year.
Oh, gotcha.
So what they had was $1 million of coverage on their car. They had multiple homes, each with $1 million of coverage, right?
Yeah.
Car, home. Deductible on these were $250, meaning they don't have insurance. They're covering it out of their pocket to $250. After $250, the insurance company is covering this,
Gotcha.
right? The insurance company covers that. But I'm saying, well, what happens if we do this? Let's go up to $2,500, but you're covering on your own. And then we're going to actually reduce this down to $250,500, meaning $250,000 per person of liability coverage, $500,000 maximum per accident, which was $500,000 less than they currently had.
Yeah, gotcha.
But by taking this different premium, I was able to get an umbrella policy, which kicks in at exactly $250,500. And what that got us was an extra $9 million of coverage, right? And so they're exposed basically $2,250. That's their exposure. But they got $9 million more coverage because they insured the catastrophic, not the inconsequential. They could pay $2,250 and go to sleep at ease that night.
Yeah,
not going to bother them with where they were. So once we understand insurance, I can ask people questions like, hey, if let's talk about life insurance. If something were to happen to you tomorrow, how much of insurance would you want to get today? If someone tells me anything less than as much as I can get, I now know there's more education, because if it's going to happen tomorrow, then I just say, well, would you want to leave your family with the same lifestyle, a worse lifestyle, or a better lifestyle economically?
Okay.
And if they go a worse lifestyle, I'm like, maybe you should end it now. And I'm like, hopefully it's the same or better.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so well, then if you knew it's going to happen tomorrow, how much would you get today? Well, as much as I could get. Okay. Right. As much as you can get. The only reason we're not getting that for most people is because how much would it cost? So now imagine this. People are putting money into savings, into bonds, into CDs, what I call fixed income, right? It's like a fixed interest rate for your income. It's not variable like the market. Well, what if they just instead took those same dollars and put it to cash value with a mutual insurance company? One of, let's say, there's probably 7 or 8 that would be fantastic. What's going to happen is in a 30-year period of time, these companies will outperform. The cash value will be greater than any of the bonds or CDs or anything like that if we look at the last 190 years, okay?
Yeah.
Here's the other issue, though, is in the first 5 years, it's almost always going to be lower. You'll have less cash because there's a capitalization period for the death benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think a little bit longer term. But if you do, what does that mean? You now have a death benefit that's either paid for or available in that future because you simply chose a different vehicle for your savings. Some people choose, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in the bank. And the banks are probably more like a bunch of buildings like this, right? All in the downtown.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So that makes sense, because it's like every time you mention whole life insurance, overfunded whole life insurance, your comments blow up with a bunch of
yeah, and by the way, it's not
haters.
overfunded. It's properly funded, because overfunding would mean that you somehow put too much in, and that would be called a MEC, modified endowment contract, which would actually lower your tax benefits.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, Weston, that's just terms I used to use too. I used to use the word overfunding until Stephen Palmer one day was like, hey, dude, how could you overfund? I'm like, you're right. Let's be really clear about this. So when you put money in the bank, it's typically going to be taxable.
Yeah.
It's going to be low interest, right? But what if instead we chose the other big buildings that are out downtown? The insurance companies. Guess what? No tax or tax benefits and higher dividends, but there's a cost to the insurance, right? And so
as you pay for the insurance, you get the benefit of it.
Right. And so you might be, again, you might be behind from years 1 through 10 or even year 20, but in any 30-year period of time, dividend paying whole life has outperformed bonds. Which means if you think long-term enough, you now have a death benefit versus no death benefit, which is this big asset. Imagine this. Imagine that you told me, hey, Garrett, I want to have $5 million in the future. That's going to take money. Might take some risk. Might take some time. Might have to pay some tax, right?
Yeah.
But if you go, hey, I'm going to put some money and I'm going to secure a $5 million death benefit, you've secured a $5 million future net worth with the deposit you make today. Now, most people think, well, you have to die to benefit. Death benefit, that doesn't sound good. Well, the reality is the death benefit can help you actually increase cash flow with other assets.
Well,
in multiple ways.
And I think a clear distinction that you made, which I hadn't really, I think that's where a lot of the hate comments come from, is you're not talking about this as an investment vehicle. You're talking about it as a savings vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference.
And I've seen, I watched a video today where someone was like, they had a client calling farmers saying they had an IUL. They said, how much money has been put into this? $44,000. How much money is in here? $11,000. They're like, look at how much you just paid. There's a discrepancy. You've got $30,000 less. Well, might be how they designed it. It might be how they funded it. It might be the company they chose. So there's a reason why there's a lot of negativity and bad press, because there's some real issues out here.
So you don't necessarily disagree with the bad press, because
they're probably 90% of the time it's right.
Yeah, gotcha.
The press is right, but I'm teaching people, and what would the Rockefellers do in these videos, how to do what the other 10% do. So it's done properly. But guess what? It's still going to look down in the first year, 2 years. I just talked to someone that, I referred out, and 75% of their cash value is there after year 1, which meant lower commission to the agent, right? Meant a different policy design with paid up additions with the base. So there's actually what they're required to pay, and then what they're putting in additionally to boost that. It also will increase the death benefit faster, because the paid up additions will push the death benefit up. So that policy design means, lower benefit to the agent, but more benefit to the client. Well, again, if I can get the death benefit to come along, I can increase future cash flow if I can help them live their death benefit, as Kim Butler might say, which would be like, my dad had a pension, and we used to have him take 20% more, because it says if he dies, the pension's gone. He could have taken 20% less and guaranteed that it would be around for at least 10 years if he died before my mom, but that's not a guarantee. The death benefit he already has with his insurance will replenish that if something happens to him. So death benefit actually increased his cash flow 20%. See how that worked?
Yeah.
And it's on a guarantee, not on a guess. There's also things like charitable remainder trust, or there's different types. Charitable remainder unit trust. There's all sorts of different names for them. Charitable remainder, there's all these, CRT, CRUT, CRAT, CRUTs, all this kind of stuff. And what it says is, if you have an asset and you sell it without using that, you'd have to pay tax on that asset. But if you use one of these trusts, you pay zero tax. You get a partial tax deduction. But when you die, the charity keeps whatever's left over. But guess what? If you had a death benefit that came along because you had the right cash value instead of just a savings account, where the term insurance would have been gone because only 1.1% ever pays out. And if you hold term insurance to life expectancy, you'll pay more in premium than the actual death benefit. It's only there for a short-term stopgap, benefit. The reality is you can, again, increase cash flow like another 30% because the death benefit exists. And this is something that's like eye-opening for people when they read What Would the Rockefellers Do? It's like, wait, the death benefit's the great benefit. The cash value is secondary benefit. It is available, it is there, and it is something you can use. But again, that has opening up someone's perspective.
Gotcha.
And then understanding the purpose of it. Yes, protection, but also increased cash flow. What are all the different things that can happen? And then build the plan where this is part of the plan, not the only piece of the plan.
Yeah. So and that's a big part is like, this is a foundational piece to your plan as you pursue your investor DNA and things like that. So you're secure. No, it's not as sexy as I think what a lot of times people are wanting when it comes to like, how do I build wealth?
Right. I mean, to be fit, people want the result, right? Like, but the gym isn't, especially if you're working out by yourself and not feeling like it that day.
Yeah.
Like, but that's part of the process. That's what's required. And so financial fitness is a little bit more confusing because like, who really does the comprehensive planning?
Yeah.
Maybe you go meet with a retirement planner. They're just talking about one aspect. Maybe you meet with an estate planner. They're just talking about one aspect. Maybe you meet with an accountant. So to get that comprehensive feel, that's what the uber wealthy have. They have the family office, which is an entire financial firm, right? To help the family out. It just works just for that family.
There are people who have gained wealth without the perspective or without the purpose.
Yeah, but if they inherit without it,
okay, gotcha.
It goes away. If they win the lottery without the perspective, it goes away. Mm-hmm. If they marry into it without the perspective, it goes away. So again, if we're talking about the gym analogy, you've got to become a steward. You got to gain the financial strength because if you don't have the right information, you're going to lose it. If you don't have the right team, it's going to slip through the cracks. I mean, this is the thing. And so,
I mean, even if you stumble upon like a great business idea with a great market, that can only last you so long.
Part of the problem with the plan is that we have seductresses, right? Like when it comes to like, ooh, you got to get in this NFT. It's going to crush.
Yeah.
Oh, you're missing out on this real estate boom. And if you don't get in it, it's less wealth for you. And so like we have all these stories that come to entice us away from the plan. And it takes a real level of discipline and dedication to stick to the plan. But just making sure that you have the basics handled, right? That you check the boxes on what matters. Transferring risk, improving cash flow, negotiating better interest rates with your loan, not overpaying on tax, like setting up the right corporate structure. Like there's foundational pieces that can get done in 90 days. We do it all the time. And multiplier people in the first quarter get the checks, they get it handled. Maybe if they're a little bit lackadaisical, they get it within a year. But most people never address it in a lifetime because, well, where do you start? And where are you trying to go? And if on that path, there's a lot of distractions over here, there's the NFT, and then you're like, oh crap, now I got to go back and start over. Like there's just so many stories that are vying for people's attention. And the foundation and the plans, it's not sexy.
Yeah.
It's just foundational. It's just solid. And when it's on solid, then you can build your house instead of on sand on something that's there to last.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And again, going back to the plan, so you're saying insurances.
Yep. So we want to get your risk transferred. That's insurance. Might be asset protection. Anyone, I don't care how wealthy they are or aren't, wants a living revocable trust. If you're really wealthy, it might be more irrevocable trust, like a domestic asset protection trust. But the thing is, if you don't do that, your assets go through probate. That means the court now sees them and the entire world sees them. It's just public knowledge.
How much does it cost to set up a trust?
I mean, look, if you're broke, you can go to places like LegalZoom and ChatGPT and at least have something rudimentary.
Oh, gotcha.
But I see for a lot of times, what our clients get on the basic level is $2,500 and on the advanced level, it's $5,500. Now, I've seen ultra high net worth people pay 6 figures for very complicated dynastic trusts, but really you can get something really well done somewhere between $2,500 and $5,500. It just depends on how customized and what type of trust. But again, if you just don't have money, LegalZoom.
And
there's websites like
is better than nothing.
Yeah, there's a firm that I know here locally, and they've got a legacy lock, and they basically have a Harvard JD, a Harvard attorney, but it's a software, and then they just kind of look it over, so you get it for a lot less expensive. There's just a lot of options, but you got to be resourceful. You got to we could find these things out so much easier today, but people are defeated based upon the information they get and the mindset. They go, oh, the plan, just where do I start?
Yeah, and it's like setting up a trust doesn't sound exciting.
Right. It doesn't, but it's a gift of love. It's a gift of care to the people that are around you. Like having a trust, when my grandfather died and then my grandmother died, we had a really good trust, which prevented fighting, which kept it private instead of being public. And they didn't have a huge estate, but there was enough that it would have been problems if it wasn't spelled out.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay. So what are the other ones after asset protection?
So after asset protection, I really look at just the entire loan structure. If someone has loans, do they need to use the 3R methodology of either restructure, refinance, or simply renegotiate?
And that's just to keep your cash flow under control, basically.
Yeah. So, and not overpay on your interest rates, right?
Yeah. If you don't have to.
And then from there, it's about mindful cash management. It's just, that's the pay yourself first methodology. It's don't spend more than you have. And then just, once you paid yourself first, having those separate accounts that we've talked about in other videos, like a wealth capture account or a wealth creation account, and we differentiate our expenses in mindful cash management. And then on the foundational side, it's just knowing your cash flow, just having basic reports and seeing that from week to week. So between mindful cash management and cash flow reports, you have a good sense. You've transferred risk with insurance. You got your asset protection set up. You're making sure that you're meeting with your tax team. That's the next thing is if you're a business owner, then it's about having a tax team. And even if you're a business owner, it goes back to having the corporate structure set up when you're getting the estate plans done, because you can use that corporate attorney to do both. And then after that, you can start really worried about investing. How do you become a better investor? Don't skip right to investing. A lot of people, I got to make my money make money. I got to put my money to work, but they don't have the foundation built. So they're a financial surprise away from being derailed or destroyed. They're one, economic cycle from being I just lost too much, or they don't have a plan. So they take on far too much risk and they're chasing some product with no premise. This is the key and I don't judge it because I've just done it. I've made those mistakes, Weston. I mean, Are you kidding me? Saving money by not paying an attorney and then it costing me way more, or, getting involved in so many things I don't have it owned right, or I'm not thinking about it, or I'm not protecting the downside, or have more than I can manage. And that was just
have you had times where you weren't insured that you wish you were?
No, I've always been insured. I've been, I grew up 19, got an insurance license, been in the insurance biz. So I had that handled.
Gotcha.
Okay? I've had the insurance game handled, but there's investments I made that there's not being proactive with my taxes during certain years, and was able to go back and amend and get refunds because of it. There was not having my cash flow in order, and that meant during times where I was having a lot of income coming in, spending too much of it, not having I had a lot of the foundation handled because I went through this thing called LEAP, L-E-A-P, Lifetime Economic Acceleration Program, when I was still in college. And they were really good about what's your financial house look like. Cool. Yeah, I did this thing called LEAP, and they had the PS&G model. So this helped me get organized early on. 9 boxes in protection, 9 boxes in savings, and 9 boxes in growth. It was kind of like a life insurance selling system, but it really helped you get your financial house in order, right? Life insurance down here, car, home, liability, disability, medical, savings. You might have anything from a bank, and then might be treasury bills, treasury notes. I mean, and then this might be aggressive growth. I mean, it was just I was really good about having these initial things handled, so that was really helpful. The problem I had was in the growth section, thinking that because I was really successful early on with my investments, that meant I was Midas, that I could always invest and have it work. And then I got stretched thin. too many properties, too many investment deals, too much going on the calls all the time, ruining vacations. Like, so that's where I got really sloppy, was on how I invested my money, because I thought, oh, this will be passive income. But the problem is sometimes it's super active to create passive income.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, damn, there's so much going on that it's sabotaging my own sanity and my business and my health and all those factors. So having a plan is instrumental. Sticking to the plan is really complicated too, because you have to learn to say no. You have to remind yourself, what is the purpose? Like, I think one of the big purposes is financial independence, right? Having enough assets that create cash flow, and then that cash flow going back and covering your expenses. That's financial independence. And so a lot of people are on this path, and then they get some crazy speculation that comes along. They call it investing, but it's really just a gamble. And then they rob money from these assets. And then when it loses, it takes longer to get to financial independence. And financial independence is powerful, because if you wake up every day and you get to choose what you want to do,
Yeah.
not that you have to, you can create a vision that's so compelling that you're excited to do it. Or you could take a vacation because you've got the financial situation that you could do it. Like, you can think about what you really want in life. That's what happens when you're financially independent.
Yeah. So in closing,
in closing, because you've been just talking too long, Gunderson. Are we ever going to get home and get dinner or what, dude?
the one thing that comes to my mind is like, okay, someone's making anywhere between 60 to 70,000 a year. And it's like in the mind, it's like, hey, I'll take care of that stuff after I start making more money, after my business takes off. Like, what's your thought to that, or your counter to that?
I mean, what about the surprises along the way that derail or destroy you because you decide to wait too long?
Yeah.
You can create more peace of mind. You can keep more of the money you make. You can invest in your quality of life if you just are willing to do the work. Saying you'll take care of it later ends up being never, because there's not going to be a time where you're not busy.
Yeah.
Or that there's never going to be the perfect time to get it done. So address it now. It's like I took my kids through this program, Love and Logic, and my wife introduced me to it. And it was like, let people learn the consequences while they're small.
Yeah.
Let them make mistakes before the stakes are too high.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to wait, because waiting is the reason why people pay estate tax, because they didn't plan early enough.
Yeah.
Waiting is why this one guy came to an event, didn't change his car insurance to have higher limits of liability, got in a car accident, cost him $301,000 because he didn't take the advice, because he could do it later. Had a good friend, Jeff, that goes, oh man, I know I'm supposed to come to your 3-day workshop, but it's like my house is on fire with so many financial things and crises I'm dealing with. I'm like, and you just called the fire station, so you should show up. And he had everything was not in order. Every part of his financial life was not in order, but that was the first step to get it in order. Not later, not eventually, because that'll cost you. It will harm you. Take care of it now.
Yeah. And time isn't found, it's created.
Right. Totally.